Okay, we're up, we're online. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Gaming Garden podcast. In this podcast, we particularly go into specific topics like gaming, anime, and being like any form of creator in the 21st century and how people just perceive and do this kind of work. Today, we have our main cast, Jack and
Yo,
Noivren.
Hello.
A- And today we're going to be talking about game design featuring our guest, Ozzy.
Yo, what's up? You'll have to excuse me if I sound a little tired than usual, or just deeper, because I just came off of that like 7 hour stream.
that's fair.
I
But yeah,
totally get
Mhm.
that. Anyway, so let's start off our topics with what makes a good game. And I want to go first just because I want to give you guys an idea of what I at least feel like is a good game. For me, a good game is not particularly just a game that just feels fun. It's also a game that, even though it has quote unquote frustrating part, it can pull through and actually make them work. Specifically, a good game is a game that's designed to do the things that it's actually trying to achieve. Because after all, games are really, at the end of the day, just subjective. But when you're capable of conveying exactly what your game wants to do, regardless of whether it's like rage inducing, fear inducing, maybe makes you heartbroken or just have fun in general. Like a game purpose isn't just to be, oh, this is fun and that's it. It's supposed to be a form of narrative, and I feel like a good game would be able to convey that as efficiently as possible. So really, a good game, while is subjective, there are some qualities that are important. It's how you're able to convey those subjective things.
yeah, that's fair. Look, I think honestly, like it's so weird. It's like a thing for me because I kind of feel that way because like my background was actually with film, not video games. Like when I
No.
started out,
Oh.
like I studied film. I studied film like mostly, like while I was when I was still in like post secondary. So like I think like to me it's just like just being able to like obviously everything's art is subjective at all points, but there's always like there's like foundational stuff that has to be good. But at the same time, it's like what are your I feel like in the end it's like what are the goals of that game, and like does it achieve it well is like the thing for me. It's
Yeah,
like
that's fair. I get that.
yeah, it's like if it's like you take apart a movie, like say I don't know, like John Wick or something, and you love it the first time, and then you keep playing, you keep watching over it, and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm starting to notice a few cracks in it, but I'm willing to look past it. I feel like that's a sign of like a good story being told. I feel
Mhm.
like that the same applies for games as well.
Yeah, I totally get that too. And like you guys said, it's very subjective to each person and as it goes. And pretty much, it's like you have to find what your audience is and see what it is that they want and they think is a good game. So I guess pretty much that just depends on the people, the games that they want to play. So that's what they're going to be looking for, at least in my experience.
Hmm.
I guess this kind of brings up a question for me. Can there be a goal that is like, can there ever be a goal that's bad if a game's trying to achieve a certain goal, but that goal is so horrible that if it succeeds, it makes it a bad game? Is that even possible?
I mean, there. I mean, you look at any like kind of like game that came out as like mainly just a shit post. Like there was someone that literally made a game of like about like Big Chungus when that meme was like all over the place, and like the entire point of that was to be like the worst absolute like absolute ass game that they've ever made, and it's just like if it's set out to do exactly that, I think it, I think it's kind. You can make that point. Where it's like it's so bad it's good. I
Yeah,
don't know.
totally.
It's just so bad it's good. Like I can't say like I hate it,
Hmm.
but I think it's like an entirely different story when like a dev is either half-assing or just not, or is like actually trying to do something but just ends up being boring. I feel like that's different than just someone just like purposely making something bad straight up.
Yeah, like something they just didn't put any effort into it, as opposed to making something dumb for the sake of dumb, but it turns out really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when what was that Metal Gear Survive came out, and you could
Oh my
clearly tell that
god.
every single aspect of that game was literally just designed to piss people off. It
Pretty
basically felt like
much.
it felt like it was designed to piss people off, but it was actually like just Konami like kind of phoning it in because they had the IP, and then you
Pretty
contrast
much.
that yeah, and then you contrast that with like I don't know, like getting over it, but with Benefati, and it's like that game is literally designed to like make people annoyed. So it's like, and you go into it knowing that's the goal, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, so there is like a clear direction that they're going.
Uh,
Actually, that is a question. Is getting over it even a good game? I feel like it's more of a game you want to watch. It's like such a YouTuber game in my sense. It doesn't kind of make sense to me. Why would you
I
create a game for the pure purpose of just making people rage?
That's the point, though. Like you said yourself, it's subjective. People definitely have different mindsets, and some people like to get really pissed at a game.
Like it reminds me of this fun game, a Japanese game called Takeshi's Challenge. It's like
It's kind of
Takeshi no Sosenjo, which the developer made it just to be as shitty as
oh yeah,
possible.
that and also like you look at the appeal behind stuff like Dark Souls and such, and it's like it seems like it's a game made to just make people rage and everything, but it's just like there's actual like intents and like purposes that they want to get across of like the way that they designed everything, you know. So I can't really say that like Benefati is even a bad game because it's doing what it because it's clearly it knows what it wants and it's doing exactly that.
Yeah, I agree
Like
with that.
yeah, and it's like, and it's also like it seems like it was just made to like make people rage, but at the same time, it's like if you make a mistake in that game or like Dark Souls or something, like that
Oof.
is almost like 99% of the time, like if you messed up, that's completely your own fault.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like and not the games and like not the games.
Yep.
So it's like you can't even like say that it's like the game's fault for like being bad. It's just that it's ultimately it's like you
Just
just need to
couldn't.
get better. It's just it's that
Yeah,
old meme, get
exactly.
good.
Like you just couldn't handle it.
Like I do find games where like one of my personal favorite games is F-Zero GX, and it's known to be one of the hardest like racing games.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, what I feel like one thing that makes a good game is even if it's like difficult, if you put in the time into it, you get better at it, and it helps you appreciate more of the game design and all that. Because it's like, okay, I'm understanding the mechanics. I need to put in the time to learn it. Like one game that I actually enjoyed more on a harder difficulty was the Uncharted games. I actually
Yeah.
enjoyed those games more on the harder difficulties because I actually had to like make the most out of like the surroundings and the environment more so than I had to do on the easier difficulties. So I feel like hard games are fine as long as they feel rewarding once like you get good at them.
There was a small gripe I do have with like hard like games that are like clearly designed with like a huge like skill cap, but it's not even
Mhm.
necessarily the game's fault. Like with the gripe that I have, it's actually the way that people react to it is the thing that really annoys me sometimes because like when Demon Souls like came out like at the like Demon Souls like they had like a demo out like somewhere and like the early reviews for that game were absolutely terrible. Like they like there was nothing quite like it at the time. This was pre Dark Souls, by the way. Like
Mm.
this was like their first attempt at like getting this kind of game into the market, and almost every single like critic and reviewer was like, they need to fine tune all of this. This is terrible. This is absolute ass. And
Hmm.
then when the games actually started coming out, like Demon Souls came out like it was like people just didn't know like how to react to it because nothing like this had ever been done before. And
Yeah.
now people go back to those games, including Dark Souls 2, which is like one of the more notorious ones. Like even they kind of like have a lot of people have really come around to like this style of gaming because it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of really smart things that they did. It's like, and you contrast that with like the era that like the game came out, like this like those games came out when like other games were like super fast paced and everything was like very responsive and reactive,
Hmm.
where like in like the Soulsborne series, like every single thing that you do has like a consequence and like an action that has to be taken. And like even the simple act of like swinging your weapon is slow, which is why you need to
Yeah.
be like smart about the way you like approach combat. I really appreciate how like a lot of those games like really were trying something new, and honestly they were pretty brave for going through with it, because they could have like just seen how like people got annoyed like all the time and just been like, all right, maybe we should make it easier, and they're like, no, they just doubled down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for them. It paid off in the end.
This kind of brings me up to a really interesting thing that I've been thinking about. Say you have an traditionally not a good mechanic in game, something that a lot of people find frustrating, something that a lot of people find, they just complain about in general, like grinding, backtracking, time-based levels, and checkpoints, or lack of checkpoints there, that is.
Mhm.
Can you make these mechanics good? Is it theoretically can you like how would you as a player from your experience seen a way to make it better? I'll start. I feel like personally, for grinding, it's always about the reward system and like how much can you keep the gameplay diverse. Because look at like a MOBA in a sense, assuming you're grinding in a MOBA. I know that's not the case, but every game can feel different. Look at Monster Hunter, grinding a different monster with different combat can feel different. Hell, even look at Genshin. I mean, I know Genshin isn't particularly that grindy, but the reward system actually makes you want to go back. And I think a good reward system can make a really good game. Like the feeling of being rewarded for actually playing. I think it's all
Hmm.
about that dopamine spikes. What do you guys think?
I think with like grinding, like especially for like a game with like JRPG elements, it's like, yeah, items like get better reward systems and items, like that's a good way to like keep people invested. But another thing that I think is like understated is like I think there's like a degree of like variance that has to be kind of like fine tuned for that reason, because it's like once you start getting to a point that you're like super high level, you do a lot of damage, it's like everything just kind of like feels like a bit of a cakewalk. It's like I feel like one way to kind of improve that is like actually kind of introduce like a different type of challenge, like when you're like backtracking or like grinding and stuff like that. If that makes sense, I don't know. It's like it's different than like say like grinding in like a multiplayer setting where it's just like you're just bashing your head against a wall for like
Hmm.
30 million years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's actually possible to make those kinds of like you know like grinding and backtracking. Like I think it's possible to make it still fun, but
Hmm.
it's also like a bit of a challenge to like figure out. It's kind of like how like Hades kind of like figured out a way to make like roguelike games a lot more accessible to the general public.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about too.
Yeah, Hades like was like an absolute like slam dunk in that regard.
Hmm. And technically, there kind of is like a subtle type of grinding, but you don't notice it because you're just playing the game. And I think that's a pretty good way to do it.
There was this thing that I learned like back in the day, like while I was still in school, where like someone told me that like in a movie, if you don't realize good editing until it's not there. I feel the same way about game design, where it's like you don't realize good game design unless it's not there.
Yeah, like I know, like speaking of like RPGs and whatever, like the games I always go back to, are like the Mario and Luigi games because those are fun, and it's not traditional JRPG, but I feel like that's a good step because you're making the combat like more interactive, so grinding doesn't feel like you're grinding, you know? And I kind of like that.
I know Neuvren in particular really hates backtracking. Want to elaborate more on that and ways you can improve it?
Backtracking. So I know some games like the main game I could think on the top of my head right now that I played like a couple of years ago that was part of my childhood, but it was really hard. Was Digimon World 3 on the PS1. Um,
Oh my god,
that
that
game,
takes me back.
it's a very nostalgic game for me, but it's just the backtracking on it can be unnecessary. Like I feel like one good thing that I know some games do is having like a fast travel. Games that have fast travel, like the Xenoblade games, like those are very important to have. I feel because the game I was Digimon World 3 would just you would just have to backtrack and it would just take time because there would be random encounters and sometimes out of nowhere you would have a cutscene and then it would just teleport you to where you needed and then other times it would be like, oh, is it going to teleport me to where I need to go? Nope, I need to walk all the way back and then back to where I originally was. So fast travel is a really good mechanic I feel to alleviate backtracking or at least make it like eventful. Like I know some people kind of don't like the backtracking in games such as like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Doors Chapter 4, but I don't mind it too much because I do find the combat fun, like throughout the entire time going back,
Mhm.
and there are story events going on while you're doing the backtracking. So there's something going on when you're going back and forth. But I do feel like I said fast travel is an important thing to have to alleviate that issue.
Actually, like on the topic of like backtracking, I think one series that's actually been really good with like backtracking is actually Resident Evil. Like Resident Evil has
Yeah.
always had like a decent sense of like how to keep things fresh without getting overly familiar. Like
Yeah,
with like the RE1 remake, it was apparent where it's like, oh yeah, you can down zombies like in a hallway, but like the thing is like the locations are so interconnected everywhere that you
Mhm.
literally cannot go a single place without going to a room that you haven't been before. But
Yep.
the thing is, the way that they changed stuff up and made you like keep on your toes all the time was like with the introduction of the Crimson Heads, where it's like if you downed an enemy and you didn't burn the body, there was a chance that it would turn into like a stronger zombie that would like
Mm.
basically maul you in like 2 hits and absolutely like demolish you. Like and then there's also like that added like and it also kind of helps with the like atmosphere in a sense because Resident Evil is always about like the atmosphere and like just like the tension. So it was like so combat in a sense was almost kind of like looked down upon. It was basically like, oh yeah, save as much stuff as you can. So save as much stuff as you can, so, like for the boss fights, and just try to
Yeah.
avoid like the enemies at
yeah,
all costs. And but but you have to but here's the thing, like you can avoid the enemies but at the risk of missing out on a really important item that you need to progress the
yeah,
story with, or more ammo or more health incentives. Like I feel like they always like had that in like spades, you
yeah,
know.
Yep.
Speaking of just like game mechanics in general, one of my favorite things in I think Resident Evil either 1 or 0 did this, where if you choose to do something, it'll heavily affect how like future scenarios happen. Like,
Oh wait, I
sh
think I think maybe RE2 actually, like back in like the PS1 edition, and
yeah,
they
hmm
had that mechanic.
and I think it's really cool. It's like your decisions actually feel impactful. Like, oh, you're gonna ignore this zombie, well, it's gonna kill that character. It's like I
yeah,
love that.
They
And I
yeah,
kind of
know
had
def-
that,
like
yeah.
I know a lot of
Oh, sorry.
games, specifically like certain RPGs, do that. I just wish more action-based one would do that because I feel like, you're constantly in the action, and the kind of person you are can define how the narrative can go. And I know it's like a little bit harder, but it can also just add so much more like flavor to just how the game goes and just add more richness to the story and the gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the thing with that, like the limitations, would just be like they have to animate the scenes even more and all that. But I do get where you're coming from. That's why, like, maybe it's not what you're thinking of, but that's why I like the Fallout series because it has a lot of that. Like, choices really do matter in the grand scheme.
That
No.
was that was kind of the case for RE2. Like, that was kind of the case with the original RE2, where like if you played scenario A and you left a certain weapon, like you left a certain weapon behind, you took a certain weapon, and you beat that game, beat that portion of the game, and played scenario B, and it would actually affect the other character because if you took that weapon that was just lying there, you can't get it for the next playthrough
Ooh.
on scenario B, which was actually like a really big thing for RE2. So, and that was actually something that was apparently missing from RE2 remake, which is something I didn't know until I went back and revisited because I got into the series late. But yeah, like I feel like letting like giving players the agency to like make mistakes or to let them do whatever at the
Yeah,
cost of like affecting the story is actually a sign of like a developer that actually respects his audience. That's
I
kind of why
think so too.
that's why I really like FromSoft's like design to games because because with FromSoft, like you can literally you can get rid of items that will actually affect like quest lines or even just like how the games will play out. Like you just like killing like an NPC that's actually kind of important. Like they give you they give you almost complete freedom in that regard, and it's like if you want to make the game harder for yourself, you're welcome to do so. But that's completely on you, and that's
Yeah.
just and I really like that, and I kind of wish that more games would like let you do stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
Like it would just change depending on what you do. And I like that concept, like making mistakes without you knowing that it's going to affect you, but realizing it later.
Yep.
But it's not in such an impactful way that you want to restart. It's just like, oh damn, oh well, I got to deal with this now. But it's okay, you know.
Kind of reminds me of like I mean games that have like where characters can just die permanently from the story, like games like Until Dawn, where
Mm.
there can be different survivors at the end, like, oh, like this character can be dead, or all of them could be dead, or all of them could survive. Like that was a really nice game
Hmm.
to play. Like just seeing the different ways the characters can die too. It's like, oh, if you made this mistake, you got to pay for it.
Heck yeah.
Okay, now that we got all the like general ideas behind game design, let's just get more specific. Let's talk about character design. What is essential to design? What example of solid character design, in your opinion?
Solid character design. There is actually something that really stood out to me when I don't know. You guys ever like stay up late at night and like kind of binge like YouTube like video essays?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
lore
every
I
once in a
videos.
while. Yeah.
there was one channel I can't quite remember like who it was, but they were actually talking about like one thing that I never even considered: silhouettes. Like silhouettes are
Oh
such a
yeah.
good way
Yes.
to like define like good character design. It's like, and they actually
Yes.
brought up Tracer from Overwatch as an example. Like, like the whole controversy with like the butt pose that like she had before.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing. The actual quote from the Blizzard devs was actually like, "Oh yeah, we felt that this pose did not like reflect the character like very accurately, which is why
Mhm.
they changed it to something else. Which is why they changed it to something else." And like
Yeah.
when you look at those two poses like in contrast, it's like yeah, the one that they replaced it with is actually like more true to the character, like, and the silhouette is more readable as well. It's like how else do I put it? It's like they designed those characters with like a specific look, a specific walk, and
Yeah,
just to be able to identify them even just by their shadows. That's a really great way to
like
like define a character's look.
Exactly.
totally. Like just look at the big names, Sonic and Mario and Pac-Man,
Mhm.
all of them. Just by looking at their silhouettes, you know who the character is.
Yeah, even remember when the Sonic movie was about to come out, and then and then it was like the old Sonic version. It was like the old
Yeah.
version of Sonic. Like
Oh God.
even with the terrible looking like old Sonic design, people still knew that it was Sonic. So
Yeah,
that just goes to show that like they got that character design like actually so
yeah.
like well defined over the
Like
years.
like the character in the movie itself might have been horrible, but the original designers knew what they were doing.
Like
Yeah,
yeah, it's basically just mm, like silhouettes are a great way to read, and also just like another thing about like character design is like also like within game as well, because like you know like say League of Legends, there is another philosophy
Yeah.
that they had: no two characters have the same walk animation. Like, and I think that's like a really good way to like define every like different character.
That's very interesting. You would
Yeah,
think they
there is
would
not.
reuse it.
No, they didn't reuse a single one.
that's
Like
good. That
like
really
you
makes
look at
them.
like two different brawlers. You look at Garen and Darius, they look very
Hmm.
similar. They're both big burly guys with like giant
Yeah.
shoulder pad armors and like giant weapons. But the difference is like the way that they carry themselves out. Like one looks like he's about to like he looks like he's about to deck you like a hockey. He looks like he's about to deck you like a hockey player, and the other guy looks like he's like a charging train. Like that's like
Yeah.
that's like quite a difference.
Yeah, that's clever. Like that's why like going back to Tracer, just all the characters in that game would do the same thing too. They all have their own little walking and the way they carry about themselves, even in first person too. So that's
Oh
what
yeah.
makes it really interesting.
Yeah, even in first person, you can tell like when the characters are idle, like you're not shooting anything, you're not even moving. It's like you get to see like how they like adjust their hands and fingers and whatnot. Like
Hmm.
you look at someone like Soldier 76. He holds the rifle like very like militaristic, like he's ready to like he's basically like he's a loaded spring
Hmm.
just about to like fire. But then you look at Junkrat and like you see the way that like
Oh
he kind
yeah.
of he kind of turns his like hands
He's
like all over the
fidgety.
place. He's very, very fidgety. Like
The
I
way he
think that's
reloads.
also great. That's a great way like you can tell like them apart.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's also like other things that I find very essential to a character design, and it's I guess it's like their signature in a sense. Like what makes this character so special? Like when you think about Mario, what makes him so special? What's his signature in a
He's the
sense?
jump man.
He's a jump
Jump
man,
man.
that's true. But his outfit is also like his biggest identifier in a sense. The
Oh
mustache
yeah.
can be an identifier.
Hmm.
Like
Ironically,
True.
even his nose is an identifier. If you put his nose and a mustache underneath it, and you put Luigi's nose and a mustache underneath it, people would be able to tell what
like
character they're trying to
You
make.
can tell who they are even without their hats too.
Yeah.
And I think that's like
like
a signature thing.
Like that's literally just a stroke of genius, honestly.
absolutely. Like
Yeah.
sometimes
Like
even if I just see people like everyday people are just like in a movie, even if I see a character like mustache, green hat or like red hat, whatever, overalls, I'm like, oh, they look like Mario, they look like Luigi. Like that's how you know it's such a good design because you can just see it.
yeah.
It's unintentional.
I don't know how many of you played it, but if you look at Nier Automata, 2B
Yeah.
just looks unbelievably unique in her design. The the little circuit thing on her, the black circuit thing on her hair, and the white hair, the band, the little eye hiding thingamajig, blindfold. I don't know why I forgot that word existed.
Mm-mm.
I feel like if you look at her, everyone is just gonna be automatically, oh, Nier Automata, or that one game I randomly jerk off to, or whatever. I'm just joking. You know how it is in the cosplay community. But I feel like that
No.
signature. is always there. It's like there's always a form of design that's important because you don't want to make your character super generic. I think there are good games that don't have a signature character, which is why they kind of fall off in the long run.
Yeah.
Look at look at Uncharted. You know, everyone knows Nathan Drake, but he's also just a normal looking dude. There's nothing about him that's like super special. Because I think they
Actually,
had like a
Yeah.
scarf
actually,
thingy.
I kind of disagree with that. I think, I think like the thing is like you can change up aspects of a character, but there are certain things you just don't touch with a character, like because that'll actually because in my opinion, I feel like that actually kind of ruins like their like recognizability. Like with there's so many fan designs of like there's like so many fan designs of like different iconic characters like from video games, but you can always tell that it's them because there's something that never changes, where it's like Mario and Luigi's face, or like 2B's eye patch, or like the hair, or like Cloud's like very spiky hair and the sword.
Hmm.
Like those are things that you don't necessarily change up like with those characters. And that also doesn't just apply to the look, it also applies to like a character's personality as well, because like people aren't dumb. People know a character in and out if they like them that much, which is why when people like people definitely notice like characters really acting out of character, like sometimes,
Yeah.
and like, wait, this is not something that they would ever do. Like it's kind of like that movie, like Batman versus Superman. It's like, like the two characters that have the heaviest emphasis on not killing people is
Yep.
being directed by a director who wants them to kill people. Like these two are just imposters. Like
Yeah.
this is not Batman. This is not
Like,
Superman.
could you imagine just one day Nintendo's like, we've seen it. It's a funny joke. Let's just have Mario drop the F bomb every 10 seconds, you know? Why not? It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, pretty
Actually,
much.
that reminds me, that movie had a funny moment. The whole premise of that movie was, oh, I'm gonna kill you. No, I'm gonna beat you. Oh, we have the same mother name. I guess we can be friends now.
Hmm.
The
Like,
entire that movie just confuses me. The whole movie is literally just like a man that indirectly murders people is mad at an alien that murders people, and then they're being pitted against each other by a guy that wants to murder each other, that wants them to murder each other, and then the other guy is stealing stuff so that he can murder the other guy, and the other guy is trying not to murder him because he doesn't want them to murder his mother, but then they're still trying to murder each other. It's like, what is going on? This makes no sense.
Yeah. The director really had some bloodlust going on there. Okay,
uh,
so I think,
Yeah, not to be like too off track though.
all right, anyways, back to the character thing. I think in that case, then we can say that silhouettes and their signature, like May said, and then what I think the third thing would be is what they're most known for doing. Like how we said Mario's Jumpman, Sonic is the fast one, Pac-Man eats the pellets, stuff like that. Like that's how you know that's a good character too. Like if the people know him for doing something.
hold on. Actually, that is interesting. I think Pac-Man somehow monopolized any yellow circle with like a pizza taken off or a pizza piece, like
Oh my
anything.
god,
Like
you're
literally,
right.
you cannot. That is such a basic, simple design, but you
Hmm.
cannot think of anything but Pac-Man.
That's
And that has
actually
to
kind
be,
of genius. You're right.
that is the
Yep.
biggest monopolized thing ever. You'll never
Yep.
forget his design as long as
Yeah. Ever.
somebody talks about him.
Can you imagine being the one to design Pac-Man and just being able to flex the fact that like
Yeah.
you ruined circles for people, like for
Seriously. Like
chat.
you could just go to a party and be like, "Don't take that slice." Oh, you know what will happen.
And it's
It's like
crazy.
how people get annoyed by like it's like how people get annoyed by like the Among Us like astronauts, where it's just like, God damn it, it's an Among Us reference. It's like the design is so good. The design
Pretty
is like
much.
so good that like you cannot unsee it in other
Like
places. It's like
whenever you
it's
see
annoyingly good.
a circle without a slice anywhere, whether it be your cheesecake, your pie, your pizza, you know it's Pac-Man.
Or it's
It's
like
freaking Pac-Man.
or it's like you see like you see like an LED, like a triangular like angled like LED with like a little bit of like that looks kind of like a ninja, and you're just like, I need healing. It's like basically stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying signature. It's like something that is so, like, weirdly, I'm not saying it's trademarked, but in a weird way, it kind of is.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this is their signature. Everything that looks like that or even comes remotely close like that is always going to be like, people are going to think about that. And that in itself is kind of a form of advertising, you know?
Oh yeah. It's pretty much advertising that keeps advertising after the game is done.
And
It's
like there is a
genius.
genius thing to it. I just think it's kind of ridiculous how Pac-Man just won the most popular yellow circle with like a pizza slice taken off of it.
Hmm.
It's crazy.
Your favorite favorite old timey smiley face wants to have a word with you.
Who are you talking about?
You know those like old like smiley faces, like
Like old
how
Like
emojis or like
no, before
oh
that,
oh you
like
mean
the
the text
like
stuff? Like the stuff that are like the tongue out and like the open
no,
mouth and
no,
stuff?
not the tongue out, like the one that
Like the
kind of
old school
like the
smiley
old
face,
school
like
one,
the
the old school smiley face with like the cheeks,
yeah,
like
like
with
the
the
ones
A
they used to
little
have
bit.
on
the ones
skateboards
that you would
and
put on like a ping pong ball or something,
those are old.
or
Like
like the smiley
before
face pin from Watchmen.
before the internet became popular.
Yeah, this is like way back in the day. Okay, never mind. That never mind.
Dude,
Moving on.
I'm
Moving on.
like
Derailing.
I'm like 23 and I am uncultured by any means.
I'm only older. I'm only older than you by like 2 years. It's okay.
Well,
Hey,
you're the same age as these two, so technically I'm the youngest one here.
I'm turning like 26 this year.
same.
Uh,
Hey,
yeah,
what about
getting old.
you, Neufren? What do you feel is essential when it comes to designing a character?
Um, what I would probably say is, I mean, about the same, like what all of you are talking about. Like, as long as the character's memorable, like you remember the design, like you remember what the character was known for. I kind of feel like the character's voice also plays an important role in memorizing them or not. Like,
Yeah,
do they have any memorable like quotes that they say? Like, I know Mario doesn't talk that much, but like the Wahoo's, like his cheerful energy that he has, like you remember that, and
there's a lot
other
of various.
like a good one for having so little, I feel, is Crash Bandicoot. Like he only said in the beginning, all he said was "whoa, whoa, whoa,"
Oh,
but you just remember that, like just that one little voice he had, which is so memorable.
Oh, this
yeah,
took
same
me
with
back.
Scorpion as well. Like Scorpion from Mortal
Get
Kombat.
oh
over
Like
yeah,
here.
you
Yeah,
remember, get out here. Like,
pretty
yeah.
much.
like you
I,
literally can't you can't like unhear it.
or
Like
you know,
that's why people like when they saw the new Mortal Kombat movie trailers, they were all like, "Well, why isn't Ed Boon doing the voice?" It's like there's a reason people are attached to that.
yeah, it just makes sense.
Also, like the Sonic way of talking, like everyone knows how to speak like Sonic. Ha, chili hot dog, gotta go fast or whatever. It's like he has that sleazy like 90s skateboarder guy like
Yeah,
vibes to him.
and not to circle back or anything, but going back to Pac-Man, the Waka Waka, everybody knows that,
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, that is a
and
signature voice.
he never even says Waka Waka. People just, that's what he sounds like. So we'll say that.
Okay,
I feel like
this
with like good character design, there's so much to like look into though. It's just like
Yeah.
it's not just like one thing, you know. Sorry, sorry, I cut you off. I just realized.
It's okay.
it's okay. I'm only gonna punish you later. Get inside. I'm kidding.
Mhm.
But Anyway, how do you? This kind of brings us to our third topic relating to character design. How do you feel about character diversity in terms of just like gameplay, stories, different species? How diverse should a game have its like cast? Do you feel like they should be like super diverse, or should they focus on a specific type so that the game can have like a good like a like a homogeneous narrative in a way?
Hmm.
I think that kind of depends on like what the game's intent is.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
once again, we're going back to Dark Souls here because Dark Souls is just really like I don't know. FromSoft is really good with this stuff. Like Dark Souls has like a really good like amount of like variety and like and like what kind of play styles that you can have. You can be a warrior. You can be an assassin. You can be like a mage, like
Mhm.
stuff like that. But then they also kind of made a huge deviation with Sekiro, where there was no other like class that you could play as. You were stuck being this like shinobi with like a prosthetic arm for the entire time. So it kind of
Mhm.
so I'd actually say that I embrace diversity. I embrace the diversity in terms of like gameplay, and like story, but I am also not opposed to like being just one character at a time.
Right.
Well, I
I
guess
think.
like say we're in a sci-fi setting, like Cyberpunk 2077. I know it's kind of a transphobic game, but let's go into it. Uh, I think the design of like only having humans in the future and no other species is always kind of boring, you know? And I also feel like not enough games have just like different species you can play as. Like there's this one game where you can play as a dinosaur, and it was like you either play as the shooty man or you play as the dinosaur. And I was like, yeah, I want to play as a dinosaur. I don't get to play as a dinosaur. Or you have Titanfall 2, where you can play as a titan. Like you can be a ginormous ass titan and beat the shit out of people. And I think of like other games, like Mass Effect. If you play the online version of it, you can play as any of the other species, and I think that's cool. I
Hmm.
think the whole narrative of games being centered around like cliche human things is cool. I also just don't see enough attention that goes into like, like what if you were another creature? What if you were like an animal? You don't
I,
see
I
enough
th-
of those.
I think you have to go back 20 years to actually see all that really play
Like
out.
Sly Coopers and stuff like that. Like that was cool. Being
Yeah,
like an
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sly
I mean,
anthropomorphic.
Cooper, Spyro, or like
Spyro,
Crash
Crash, Banjo
Bandicoot,
Kazooie, all
Nowadays,
those
it's all just.
platformers.
Conquer.
Conker's
Yeah.
Bad Fur Day. Yep. Bring
No,
that back.
Conker's Bad Fur Day is really
Yeah,
Is
good.
anyone just
Conquer.
coming out as a furry in this stream? Is that what's going on?
Mm.
I also realize a lot of these characters are kind of like furry-esque. They're anthropomorphic animals.
Right. That point aside, back
Hey,
to the
don't call me out like
topic.
this.
I don't need the
My
last
girlfriend already
one.
makes beef. My girlfriend already makes fun of me enough for this.
I'm sorry.
No
Hey,
whiffing for you. Like, but yeah, it's true because like nowadays, all you see really is either the next Call of Duties or the next shooters slash adventure that has the same old protagonist that you already know, but has a different name and face because they don't have any more ideas about how to change the games. But like, it's difficult though because some people attempt to do that and it doesn't go as well as they wish it would. Some do, but it's kind of like a hard thing to thread through because you're trying to go get to a demographic of people that are so used to just seeing the same
like
old
like
character.
some devs sometimes want to just go the safer route, if I would say that.
Mm.
The problem with
Like,
having, I don't know, sorry for interrupting, but I feel like the problem with having like this so many human characters is we don't get these like signature characters anymore, like a mascot character. There's no more like Sonic, Mario, or Crash
Mhm.
Bandicoots. Like we don't get those kind of characters as much. And they are kind of like a mascot. They can be a mascot to a whole company sometimes. You don't think of
True.
Nathan Drake as the mascot or Shepard as the mascot. Like they're great characters. They're not like really like a character kind of like I don't know, like a mascot kind of character, and I
Well,
really
like
love
I don't
those.
know. Among Us kind of has a thing going on.
that's
Among
true.
Us kind of counts.
But like
Among
you
Us kind
know,
of has a thing going on though.
I think it's
I,
specifically the red one that's like kind of the main one.
No, but just like
well,
the design in general though.
not for nothing, but I do think of all the newer, at least quote unquote mascots, I think like going back to it, Tracer does kind of put herself as the mascot right now of either just
Winston.
yeah, I'd say he's up there, but I don't know.
Winston.
When it,
Winston is like the emotional heart of Overwatch.
yes, he is the heart, but
He's the heart, but he's also been pretty heavy in like the game's marketing alongside Tracer. So
that's true. But whenever you think of the silhouettes that they put on for Overwatch, you always think of Tracer, and the poster it's always her. He's there. But don't get me wrong. But like just to like cut her. I don't want to
it's
say
like what do you?
behead her, but like just look at her head, the shape of her hair, and you
Okay,
know who it is.
my point is whenever you're in a gaming space and you say the word monkey, you think Winston.
Yeah,
People have literally made stickers of like sticker art of like a really like shitty like Winston drawing. It's just like a really shitty outline of a gorilla with like, and then you give him a pair of glasses, you automatically know that's Winston.
that's true.
I don't know. If that's not a
You know,
mascot, I don't know what is.
I think they're both. I think Tracer is like the serious
Yeah.
mascot, and then Winston's like the playful, memey mascot,
I
the one
mean,
that people want.
what
It's like,
about
oh,
Fortnite? I think Fortnite mascot is just Ninja at this point, which is kind of interesting. They don't actually have a game mascot. They have a streamer as their mascot.
Huh?
actually
Isn't it like
Timo.
Jonesy?
Actually,
Yeah,
Timo's a pretty big mascot for like League of Legends. Like everyone knows where he's
Timo? Oh
from.
yeah,
Everyone knows where he's
I know
from.
Timo.
Everyone hates the shit out of him, but like everyone knows where he's from. Everyone knows that like he is kind of like Timo is like that one character that kind of opened Riot up into like making all these different types of like species and like characters into their
Mhm.
universe.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty I feel like that's a pretty decent example for
What
something
are
that
they? The Yordles?
I
yeah, the Yordles.
I think
Yeah.
there's importance in diversity in the terms of story. If you look at Resident Evil 4, you either play as Leon or Eve. What's her name? Eve? It was something with
Oh,
an E.
No,
Ozzy?
Ashley. No, it's
Ashley.
Ashley.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
other one you get to play. And I think it was interesting. You either play as Ashley or Leon, and there was actually both had a story of their own. And I think that's important. I hate when there's like a side character that's just blatantly ignored and it's just there for like personality. I feel like it doesn't offer enough in terms of like the story. And I feel like a lot of games just like focus too much on one character and like the story doesn't really come together because you're only seeing it from one perspective. And I
I
know
feel
that
like that's a bit of a necessary evil. Oh, sorry, sorry to interrupt, but I don't know. I feel like that's a bit of an. It's like a bit of a necessary evil where it's like you have like these really good side characters, but like they don't. They ultimately like don't really like have like a huge stake in the plot as much as your main character does. But like
mhm.
I'm not sure that's really the fault of like the story writer. That I don't know. It kind of is. It is
Yeah,
and isn't at the same time because it's just like like I feel bad for pointing it out, but it's also because like I'm not sure what the actual good solution to it would be because
yeah,
it's just like a story writing like limit. It's like it's like an ensemble cast where it's just like, oh yeah, like you give you give certain people more screen time than others just naturally, but there's no but it's ridiculously hard to like balance it out like so evenly like among so many characters that's just like how are you going to
yeah.
accomplish any of this? Like
It's
you're gonna need a
especially
lot of time and a lot of resources into like making that happen, and
it's totally
sometimes you just don't
true.
have either.
It's especially hard if you have if you don't have a lot of time to put into an actual cast. Like say you're making like a show, it's only one season, 10 episodes. You do not have enough time to focus on every single character, even though
Yeah,
you really want to. But it's definitely tough. I think it falls down on a scale of what you really want told in the story, whether it's you want your character to interact with everyone, or they just want going to interact with two or three other characters, but these other characters are gonna just be there in the background as support cast. It's definitely tough, especially when like the majority of people like the side characters more, and you're like, oh well, I wish I would have put more effort into those characters. Then it's definitely hard though, because they're just it's a different it's a different world altogether when you're trying to make a story.
this isn't necessarily to say that like I don't know how do I put it, like not to like backtrack away from like games, but like that's actually kind of a thing that I had a problem with like Promare, like the
Mhm.
Studio Trigger movie. Like I really like the main character and like I like the main two leads, but like I really wanted there to be like more focus on like the side characters because they were all they had interesting setups and they had like really interesting designs, but like they didn't even bother to like even look past them beyond like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
always a shame.
it's like it's like how much time are you willing to like spend away from your main character to like try to flesh out like the side characters more, but also like how do you do it without derailing the overall narrative?
Yeah, that's a tough one because you want to
That's the
keep
biggest challenge of all of it.
because you got to do it in a way that you're going to keep the audience interested. It's definitely tough. And
What about you, Noivrin? What do you feel about like design in terms of diversity and like story and stuff?
The way I feel is depending on the what the whole aesthetic the story has going on, like the theme, like oh, is it fantasy? Is it just like a zombie kind of theme? Like let's say if it's like sci-fi or fantasy, like if I feel like if you have all these different species, races and such, I feel that more time should be invested in them. Like I feel like one shouldn't like outweigh the other. Like when one get more of the spotlight over the others, unless the narrative specifically is like telling. Like I think some like of the Elder Scroll games are based in certain areas of the world, so it makes more sense that one race would have more of a focus. But it is something I would think would be cool to see more of. Like I know Skyrim, like races such as like the Argonians and Khajiit don't really get as much spotlight as do like the Nords. So I think it'd just be cool for games to like give more attention to the other species.
it's true. You know, uh, not to go back to the other one we were just talking about, but since you mentioned zombies, all I could think about was The Walking Dead and the how the game managed to give focus to some side characters depending on how you played the game. And I guess that's one way to make the game, keep the story going, but have side characters be important if you choose to give them that importance as a player. I think
Yeah.
that's a good way to do it.
Now that I feel like everybody had their piece when it comes to character design, I kind of want to move on to level design in general. And this kind of brings us to the next topic. What makes the best aesthetic game design? Like, is it open world? Is it linear level or stages? Or is it just like chapters? Like, what kind of design when it comes to like, okay, I'm creating this game and I'm going to create it to be this way? Like, how do you make it aesthetically the most pleasing?
I don't think there's a way to say that one is better than the
Yeah,
other.
because there's so many different ways that you can approach level design. Like
Totally. Well, going back to it, it's just what kind of story do you want to tell?
Yeah.
Then you stick on that story, and you have to figure out whether it's going to be better in a first-person shooter, or it's going to be an open world one that's going to help benefit your story more, where you go travel to different locations to meet different people and stuff like that.
But
I think.
that being said though, that being said, I'm very partial to games that are like that. I'm very partial to design that's more dynamic than it is static and like scripted all the time.
Mhm.
Because like, um, hmm, I don't know. Say like Resident Evil 2 remake, you always have Mr. X following you at like any given point in the in the Raccoon City department, in the Raccoon like police department, the
Mhm.
Raccoon City police department. Like Mr. X is always chasing you, but like but like but like there are certain times when it's scripted, but a lot of times it's not. Like he's actually looking for your ass.
Yeah, I get that. So it's like some sort of external force where you're not necessarily interacting the entire time. It just kind of happens on its own.
Yeah,
So it's not real.
I like it when things when like devs like put in the effort to like make things like happen on their own.
Yeah,
But at
I
the same
heard.
time, I totally understand why this can't be the case for all the time
Right.
because like another game that has like a similar mechanic is actually Alien Isolation, and a lot of it turns out a lot of the parts that I thought were dynamic were actually completely scripted because it was
Oh.
like those moments like once you trigger a certain like checkpoint like or a certain area like you are like this 100% will happen, and
Mhm.
turns out like the vent noises sh- there's actually a really good channel on YouTube like where they actually go beyond like the walls of the game as well as like up as well as like out of bounds and stuff,
Uh-huh.
and it turns out the alien is never actually in the vents in the first place.
Yeah, interesting. It's just kind of like a way for the devs to like trick you into thinking that it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never played I never played this game in particular, but I heard that things just happen on their own in this uh in Chrono Trigger,
Yeah. Mm.
where where some like quests can just happen every now and then. You can miss them if you don't get to them on time. I don't know if that's true. I can't speak for it. But
I haven't played either.
but I think those are interesting too though. Say like games where it would just be like you can get there like say at this time in game time and you miss it, but that activates a different quest line entirely. I think those are pretty interesting. I think that's part of the reason why I liked. I know it's more linear, but I liked Majora's Mask because it
Mhm.
kind of did that, but in a more linear way, where things happen on their own, but because you can go back in time, they always happen.
Yeah.
I think I like that.
Like, if you wanted to ask me if I wanted more linear levels or whether or not I wanted something that's like basically just open world or something, I think like if you wanted more exploration, if you're making a game like specifically to focus more on exploration and to reward people for that, I think open world is like a good way to go about it. But linearity is good. Linearity is good for storytelling, like for the most part, because it's just like you want people to hit certain beats and certain paths, like in a story,
Hmm.
and like keeping things like simple. There's I've always been under the impression that like less is more, which is why like linear levels like really like appeal to me like a lot as a player.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
there's
because
some.
like if you give me like if you give me like sorry,
No,
if you
keep
give me
going.
like a confined area to explore, like but it's good, but it's well designed well enough that I can navigate it without a mini map. I'm literally just like yo, I'm a happy camper. But you give me like an
Yeah.
open world area, and you're just like yeah, find the objective in like very vague terms. It's just like it it does literally nothing but annoy the piss out of me.
Like the Assassin's Creed games where like the first mission is okay
Yeah,
and then you're
and
like,
then
oh, it's an open world, go for it.
Assassin's Creed like should just rebrand into like walking simulator because you're literally just trailing people for like 90% of the runtime. And the worst part about that is like Assassin's Creed actually has a really good gameplay loop of like combat that's flashy looking, and also like the core concept is unironically amazing. But Ubisoft's version of variants is like, yeah, let's have players play the exact same mission 30 times in a row, and
Oh
that's
my
going to be
god.
our version of variance. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
And we have a big ass map to like explore, so it's just not a good combo.
Mhm. I guess they saw Nathan Drake jump and run and everything, and they're like, we could do that, but in an open world.
Actually, in my opinion, I find open world to be just like aesthetically the most pleasing to me.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you have like a big, maybe like a big field or a big city, and you just have all this like intricate things in it, and you just want to go into. Actually, this is something I hate about like city games is the fact that you can't go into every building. And I know that's asking too much, but I genuinely want to just go inside and pretend
Yeah,
that I exist there or something.
No,
Some,
I can totally understand that, honestly.
Sometimes
yeah.
I would just role play. Like I just pretend like I exist in those games and it's just fun. I mean, that's why I liked MMOs when I was younger. It's because I can
Like
just become something
Warcraft.
else. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, Warcraft. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah,
They're going.
like
Keep going.
while linear and stages design is cool and fits perfectly for a lot of games, for me it's like it's really hard to make it aesthetically pleasing. There are games that are super aesthetically pleasing, like there's that one Switch game that my roommate he used to play all the time, but I cannot remember what it's called, and I'm not gonna bother. Uh, but it was like a weird game where you played as this girl with this hair that changes color, and you can jump between walls, and it was like a platformer.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the name either.
Yeah, right. That game was really
Problem.
aesthetically. Yeah, I know it's painful.
Wait, I can't remember. But going back to the open world thing, I do think though a lot of devs kind of miss out on open worlds, and they leave the open world kind of empty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Mass Effect Andromeda be like.
so it's kind of that's their like downfall when they don't put a lot of effort into the open world, or when they don't like it doesn't even have to be objectives, just have the world feel like it's living.
Like
And then
Xenoverse 2 had a really good open world. Even if you're not playing the game and you're doing your own thing, you can go into specific areas and there's like lore behind these like swords and stuff.
I mean, kind of like the very old, like the very first like open world games, like Grand Theft Autos, like the starting with Grand Theft Auto 3, where you just have like these NPCs just walking around in the cars, and then the cops. Sometimes the cops would be chasing like a criminal, and you could either interfere or you can mess with the cops. Like, I feel like those are still very solid open world
yeah,
games.
I mean,
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
those are good because they're meant to be chaotic in a sense because it's a sandbox game, so you just kind of just drop yourself in there and do what you want, and you can play it for like hours and not you know think that you're wasting your time because you're just having fun.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
But then there's other open world games where you're just running for 30 minutes in a direction, and you see what, like two animals pass by in those 30 minutes. That's when you kind of want to sit down and just maybe not play the game anymore for a bit.
Hmm.
I think that's definitely my take, at least when it comes to open worlds. As for linear though, I kind of like it sometimes. It depends on the game, to be honest. Uh,
It really does. If the transition feels like it makes sense, then I love it. Like if you look back at the old Monster Hunter games, they used to be more linear, but Monster Hunter World is more of an open field. And it made sense when you went from one stage to the other. In fact, there was cool things you can do, like go to a secret area in the old Monster Hunters, where in Monster Hunter World it's more of like find the secret area. You can't really teleport to it, and sometimes you'll just teleport there randomly. So I'm not saying that like linear or stage design is particularly like worse. It's just like aesthetically, it doesn't pleases me, my opinion. I know a lot of people find it really beautiful and a lot of people genuinely enjoy it. It's just for me personally, it just doesn't hit the same, you know?
Like one thing for me that I do find appealing about more linear games than open world games is sometimes they're just nice, quick experiences. Like
Yeah.
sometimes when I play open world games like Skyrim, like I don't know how long it would even take me just to complete the game. Like, because I'm like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? And then you have just like I'm playing the first Sly Cooper game right now, and it's a linear one, but I heard the second and third games are more open world. But I just like how it's just like streamlined. Like, okay, here's the gameplay. I'm gonna be done with this game. It won't take me too long. The characters are memorable. The music's good. The scenery's good. Nice, fast game to play. You could just pick up.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite linear game, well, at least one of them is, at least, like I've said before, I love The Last of Us. It's just a nice story-based game that I like playing. And it's linear, but it does its job. Conveys a story, and going in a linear game fashion, it does it well.
I think the trick with like a linear game, like feeling bigger than it is just that like it's designed in a way that like it feels like it's open world, but it's actually like but but it telegraphs like so well like where you have to be. Like, and
Hmm.
I think that really lends itself to a lot of like credibility in that sense. Like
Yeah,
Last of Us is a pretty good example of that. Like,
where like you feel like you've got options to go there, but at the end of the day, you're
but
going
at
to
the end
end
of
up
the
at
day,
one
like the
place.
game is like it heavily implies, but it's not outright about saying it because it trusts you to figure out where the hell you have to go
Hmm.
or like what you need to do.
Like, it's not
Like,
going to say like go that way, go that way. It's like,
yeah,
do your thing, you'll get there.
yeah, you're not gonna have like an annoying like fairy like in your ear just being, being like,
Yeah.
You're going the wrong
not,
way.
not the best
We don't have
example.
anything here. You're going out of bounds.
it's like, and it turns your ass around. It's like, no,
Mhm.
Or a kitty that tells you to go to bed when you just want to do things like it's your freaking mother. Ah,
and
you're
then
too
it's
tired. Go to bed. Like, shut up,
yeah, it's like
Morgana.
I love Stardew, but like that one thing with like the exhaustion thing, it's like, please, this actually kind of like bugs me so much. That's like
Yeah,
the only gripe I actually have of Stardew. It's in the sense that like there's like the that kind of game mechanic that just kind of like forces you to not play
Yeah.
or just,
yeah. You
yeah,
never want to feel out of control as a gamer, unless
unless it
like
makes complete sense, like to be
yeah.
like out of control.
Well, like going back to The Last of Us, when you're playing, uh, and I mean everyone's played it here, right? I'm gonna say
Yeah,
spoilers.
Yeah, we played it.
Okay, so when
Spoiler
you're,
warning.
yeah, spoiler warning, people, cover your ears, or But anyways, when you're playing as Ellie and you're trying to, like, at the very end of the whole battle, when you're trying to just crawl and get to that, and you just can't get to it, and you just feel like you can't do anything about it. That kind of makes sense to me, at least. Like, it's not your job to end the whole thing completely. I mean, you do it at the end anyways, but still, like, when you're when you feel like you don't have a shot, and but it makes sense in the story that the game is conveying, that's when you're allowed to take away the power from the player. Everyone,
and taking power away
Yeah, I
from the
get you.
player, taking away agency is actually such a risky thing for any dev to do. Like for
it totally
real,
is.
because like it can, because like it's one of those things where it's like it's going to be amazing if you can pull it off, but it's so easy to backfire.
Yeah,
Like you
One
literally just
thing
like
that
run
I
the risk of like you run the risk of like alienating so many people just doing that.
one thing I found really cool, like, has that have everybody here? Oh man, it's spoilers. I'll just give a subtle hint to what it is. Just what the basis of it is. So one thing I found pretty cool. One game. Jack might know what game I'm talking about. Um, it's like the final boss fight. You're playing as the main character, but then like the boss like does a move on the main character where you can't control them anymore, and you have to use another character, like a side character that was fighting with you, to like save the main character. Like I feel like that was a really cool way of kind of applying like, oh, you lose control of the main character, but you're using this other character to help win the battle for you.
Yeah.
That kind of brings me on to our next topic is what's your most memorable level or stage in a video game? What made it so memorable?
You know,
I'll go. I can go ahead for this
go
one.
for it. Go for
Yeah,
it.
you go.
The one I could say is probably one of my most memorable levels. I mean, part of it might be due to nostalgia growing up with this game, but I'd probably say Destiny Islands from Kingdom Hearts 1. Like, I played that game so many times. Like, it's a world that you don't spend too much time in. Like, you're just there for the beginning of the game, and then you pretty much never visit it again. But it's just the whole, like, just how simple it is. The music is memorable. Just the little fights you do. It's like the tutorial part of the game. Like it's how the whole story starts. Like all the big stuff happens right there when the story really gets going. I'd probably just say that's probably my
Mhm.
one of my contenders, if not my most memorable level.
Yeah,
Oh
and
man. uh, yeah, sorry, you wanted to go ahead?
sure, I'll go since it's just going back to what I was just talking about. The back to The Last of Us is just I like that level so much because it starts off with you not knowing what happens, not knowing whether or not she's by herself or you just got to keep going, and it's just like a suspense, but it's taken at such a pace where you got to just level with the game and be there until you get that realization where when she trades the buck for medicine, you're like, holy crap, that's awesome. She's not alone, and it's just like the way that the story's building itself up, and then when it gets to that climax at the end, that was just it was really well written, at least in my book, for as far as a level goes. Because then, like, you also you play as whenever you play as her, you don't have the same power, which makes sense as Joel, because she's a little girl, or at least a teenager, so she's not going to be as strong and take down all these people easily. And I kind of like that because it changed the way the game played a bit. You had to be a little bit more careful with what you did.
Mhm.
So I think that's one of my memorable levels for sure.
My most memorable level is actually gonna go to this one indie game. It came out a really long time ago, like about 8 years ago. It's
Hmm.
called Gone Home.
Oh, I played that one.
Yeah, Gone Home. I think that entire game is actually like it's actually so memorable to me. Like I remember the first time I played it, like I wasn't sure what to expect. I legit thought that this was just a horror game, right? Like
Yeah,
I
exactly.
thought it was a horror game in like in lieu of like say like Silent Hill or something like
Yeah.
or something like that. Like I played it quite a while after it came out, so it was like okay, I found it late, but you basically like the story is like you're coming back home after like a long time, and you come to your old like childhood home, and you find out that the whole place is emptied out. There's like no one there. No one's in the house anymore, and you're trying to figure out what happened in there, and like you think that like it's gonna be like a jump scare like filled
Exactly.
like game, like where it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, spooky ghost or a spooky monster like chasing you, not like that. But then the more you explore that entire house, your old house, you're basically retracing like your old memories as well as like the memories of your sister, like your sister, because like something happened in the time that you were gone from home, and it's like and it goes from like and like it shifts the game from like from like a degree of uncertainty and like kind of like a lot of fear into something that
Hmm.
like you're like super, it's a mystery that you get super invested in, not just like with one person. You're thinking of like a whole bunch of other characters that you've never seen the face of before, And it's just like I think Gone Home is honestly like a game that everyone should play.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say anything more about it except that everyone needs to play at some point.
It's definitely not a horror game. Now, yes, that's the first thing I thought too when I was playing it, because it's like, I mean, just the camera, like just the first person view it has, it just sets up, everything's just set up perfectly to be a horror game, but it's not, and it's just
But the
such a
only thing I'm gonna
surprise.
say, the only other thing I'm gonna say about it is that it made me cry like a lot. Like that's something I don't say for a lot of games, but like that actually made me cry.
Oh.
I love when a game makes me cry. It means that they somehow managed to
They did a good job.
actually transfer those emotions to me. Like, it's hard to convey emotions in art, and I think that's like one of the biggest challenges when it comes to writing. And if you're able to convey that emotion to the point of invoking it in other people who consume it, then you did an amazing job, you know?
Hmm.
Speaking of, one of the most memorable levels has to be the spaceship in Deponia 3. If any of you ever played or heard of the game Deponia.
I don't think I have.
Not
No, I haven't heard of that.
Really? It's a
Yeah.
game on Steam. It's a point and click game. It's a puzzle game about this one sleazy guy who wants to go into Deponia because Deponia is like a high society thing because the Earth got like trashed on and it's just trash and people live in this weird spaceship. And I
Hmm.
remember, I think it takes you like till like the second game to actually get inside of the spaceship story wise. And I remember the first time getting in, and I'm like, this is it. This is Deponia. This is the stage that they've been hyping up for so long. And then you look at it and you just like, you want to remember everything because you want to know what made it such a big deal to the main character. Like, I'm not going to get into what it is actually because I do recommend playing that game in particular, but it just like, I can't forget the events of that game. And I'm a very forgetful person. Like, I don't remember what happened last year. All I remember it was March and now it's April, but like a year has passed or something. That's what I've been aware of.
Hmm.
But like for Deponia, it's like it's always been there on my mind. And then, fun fact, a lot of people complained about the ending because it's a trilogy. But so the developer made a fourth game which had the same ending just to spite people. And I thought it was funny.
God.
I loved the ending, by the way. Not
Hmm.
every ending has to cater to the rose-colored glasses.
No, I love a
Oh yeah.
tragic ending.
And I love
Those.
Deponia for that. I love the fact that it made, you know, the spaceship, the thing that the main character talked about so profusely, memorable. And you don't
Hmm.
remember things that much unless the, like, I think like I somehow identified with the main character and I myself valued Deponia, even though it's just a fictional place.
Hmm.
And that's why I love it so much.
Mhm.
Now brings us to our sixth topic, which is game mechanics. What type
Oh
of me?
boy.
Oh, I know. There's like a whole can of worm here.
You're
What
not
type
gonna
of
get thrown up.
what type of mechanic makes a game enjoyable to you? And which mechanics can ruin a game for you?
Hmm.
I
I'm
mean,
not
I'd
gonna
say
say
going back to the
mechanics.
like, I'd say going back to early on, like mechanics that could ruin things for me, or just like sometimes time-based like levels, like those are could just really. Sometimes I don't like being pressured, like, oh, I gotta finish this quick. I gotta finish this quick, but like I've been recently playing Sly Cooper 1, and one thing I like what the game does is it rewards you for doing those time trials. Like the reward the game gives you is game developer commentary on each level, which is a really cool thing. Like I don't know how many games do that still. Like this is a really old game, like 2002. So I feel like mechanic, like rewarding the player, like giving them something to look forward to going through like the difficult levels they got to do. Like one thing I like also is skill trees. I find skill trees a very fun mechanic. Like in Borderlands, like I always look forward to leveling up because it's like I get to have this cool new skill. Like I can make my skills better. I can make my character even more powerful. So I feel skill trees and rewarding the player with cool things and not just like, oh, percentage. You have plus 5 percentage because you did this. No, give the player rewards.
Hmm.
Give the player more buttons to click. Okay, I want my buttons. I want new mechanics with my character.
Well, I will say,
Progression is a good mechanic. It's always been a good mechanic.
I kind of like what's the term for? I don't know, but it's like beat based, I guess. When you're trying to, you have to do something on the beat, but it's not really a music game. Like kind of like I always go back to Mother 3 because I love that game. So like what you do in that game is if you put an enemy to sleep, you can hear their heartbeat, and if you attack based on that heartbeat, you keep on attacking them, and you keep going and going and going. And I really like that, like just beat based mechanics, I guess.
Like it was a thing that freshens the RPG genre for you.
Yeah,
Like
where it's
it's
just like press the A button, attack, you're done.
Mhm.
It definitely brought a little more to the RPGs in my book. Like it was really nice to just be able to play a game and keep fighting in a sense while I'm playing it.
Oh, wait, I have a comment from our Twitch chat that's kind of interesting. Love it when games reward mastery rather than punishing poor play. I kind of find it interesting because punishing the player for playing badly can help them learn how to play the game, but it can also be like a double-edged sword because if you punish your player too much, they might just straight up quit the game. I mean, I guess unless the whole point is to punish the player, ahem, getting over it.
Well, I mean, that's just going back to like Dark Souls, right? Like if you die, you just got to get better. But
You have
it
like
also kind of
what
sucks if you die again because then you
like
lose all the souls.
because the thing about like the Soul series is that like the director has gone
Yeah.
on like record saying that he himself is bad at like Dark Souls. Like he has literally said that he is bad at Dark Souls. So like
Jeez.
because of that, it kind of puts a lot of things into perspective where it's like a lot of things in those games feel unfair, but they're actually designed in a way that even the worst player can still prevail against like the challenges that the game
True.
presents to you. Like
That's-
that's kind of why I get annoyed when people automatically kind of like after they get their ass kicked a couple of times by like a Dark Souls like mob or a boss, they just like give up. They just give up, channel their inner games journalist, and they're like, yeah, this stuff needs to be more accessible. It's like you just suck.
No, yeah, no, I'm guilty of just stopping, but I will say I do suck. I suck at that game.
It's like it's like about it like we all suck.
Hmm.
It's like just like the
it's
whole point is to just like learn how to suck less over
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like
Like
I know it's gonna sound very harsh, but
it's true.
a lot of those games, it's like there are issues of hitboxes every once in a while. There's issues of
yeah.
bugs, but a lot of times, most of the times, like the mistakes that you make are the ones that get you killed. So it's like
Mhm.
it'd be like that. I think like dynamic difficulty is like a great mechanic like for games because like it kind of like adjusts like the difficulty based on how well you're performing or how poorly you are. Like Resident Evil 4 actually had this one as well, and the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes also have this where like if you're performing really well, like the game actually gets harder for you so that it's not just a cakewalk, but if you're performing badly, the the dynamic difficulty actually adjusts accordingly and like makes it easier for you by making either the enemies easier to kill or it's gonna like let you find more items that'll help you out and stuff like that. So that's like one thing I really enjoy about like enjoy like mechanic wise. But a mechanic that I absolutely think needs more attention being put into it is actually crowd control. Like crowd control, whether you're being stunned of any kind, or just like anything that really like that takes away a player agency for like even a moment, it can backfire really
Oh
easily, especially if you can
Yeah.
change those kinds of things. That's kind of why like games
Yes.
like League of Legends and Overwatch can actually be like a bit of a maddening like experience,
pretty
because
much.
it's like
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
in theory it's something that evens the playing field, or like makes a fight more unfair, or not unfair, but like more heavily tuned in your favor. But the problem is, if the devs aren't aware of how powerful it is, or just are neglectful of how powerful it is, it really ruins the experience like massively, which is like a huge criticism I have for like Blizzard specifically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Actually,
definitely.
speaking of game mechanics, I had one in my mind. Games rewarding you with more game content if you understand its mechanics. Say you're playing Mario and you know how to do the spin jumps, then you can go on the secret stage and you can find all the secret stuff, and you just get like in Mario Galaxy, if you understand certain mechanics, and like I think it was like the B level, you unlock like a secret universe or something.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. I'm getting more games because I finally understand the game more. But if I am at a stage in my game where I don't understand those mechanics, then the game is just gonna go very linearly. But I can find extra stuff after I have like mastered more mechanics when I go back and play the game. And I think that's really wonderful. Like like in Dark Souls, if you go to the secret area where it's like the first stage, but like the dark version of it, where like everything is black, but it's exactly like the tutorial stage. You guys know the stage I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
I think
Mm.
that was cool. You just discover that and you fight a harder version of that one guy, and you just get like a huge reward for it. I was able to finish it, and obviously like the nameless knight, nameless king. That was a
Yeah, I
great
mean, it's good.
mechanic that you can like. That was a great boss fight that you need to understand a lot about Dark Souls in order to beat him. And that kind of like, okay, if you understand the mechanic, you get rewarded kind of mentality is something that can make a game really enjoyable. It actually makes me want to play it. Because a lot of game you're like, I'm really good at it, but it doesn't feel fun because
Mhm.
it's not giving me anything for being good at it. It's just giving you a high score, and high scores aren't enough, you know?
Yeah,
Mm.
no, that's totally fair, honestly. Like, hmm. Yeah, like the rewards like the game gives you like shouldn't just be like arbitrary, you know? Like it should actually like the rewards that the
Like,
game like gives you actually should mean something, whether it like helps you like get through something like better, or it's just like, oh yeah, you deserve this for like you deserve something actually good for having like pulled
uh,
this off.
one thing I miss about a lot of older games is just unlockable like characters, like all these stuff you can unlock, all these
Oh
secrets,
yeah,
like developer commentary videos you can unlock. Like I just miss those so much. Nowadays
Yeah.
it could be like, oh, it's really easy to just get all the characters, or you start with all the characters, or
Or they're locked
DLC.
behind DLC.
I feel like with the advent of the internet, though, I feel like it's hard to keep secrets because it's just like because like it's
True.
just the nature of it, because it's just like people have like instant access to information like right away. Like
Yeah.
even
That's the
like
one thing.
Kojima when he made the when he made PT, like he wasn't expecting people to figure the game out for like at least a week, but people figured it out within like the first day, and he was so surprised.
Yeah.
That kind of goes to show like how far people have come in terms of like communicating and like just like figuring out how to do things like this. It's just like
Yeah.
like it's harder to do stuff like this. Like
Like,
back in the day, like Mortal Kombat, like they had a spin-off called Shaolin Monks.
oh, I love that.
Like there were so many secrets hidden in that game. Like you could play as Sub Zero and like Scorpion if you did like a certain like if you did like a certain thing, or there was like a certain mini game, or there was like a certain like new stage. it's something that like if you knew like did like this in a certain sequence or like whatnot, like there there's a bunch of that stuff, but now like an Easter egg in a video game just kind of amounts to just like a cameo
Yeah,
or just like something really like kind of cute, but then it just kind of like what was the point of this?
yeah. It's very hard for developers to even keep secrets inside the game nowadays because people just like they dive into the codes and take them all out and
Hell, it's
dissect the
even harder.
game.
Hell, it's hard to even keep secrets about a story for God's sakes. Like people
Yeah.
like
Oh
people
yeah.
literally like there's literal YouTube channels that have made careers off of like just leaking video game endings like on day one. So
Yeah,
it's like piss off.
seriously.
Like you guys suck.
You know, there is a game mechanic that kind of ruins the game for me, and it has to do with like it's not a one particular mechanic, but it's redundancy. Redundancy that doesn't get you anywhere. Redundancy that's like not progressive. Like, oh, you unlocked character 2. Now you have to finish the same stage in order to progress. Like I find that very frustrating. It's like I'm doing the same thing, playing the same thing over again, and it's really just adding, I guess, like hypothetical extra time into the game. Like, of course, the game takes longer. It takes longer to beat because I have to do the same thing over and over again, and I'm
uh,
getting nothing out of it. Like, I'm literally just doing it to progress.
so we're circling back to Assassin's Creed, basically.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. I've played the first Assassin's Creeds. I think I kind of stopped after the pirate one.
But yeah, the first one was good, and the Ezio ones were okay. And then
I
I
think
didn't play anything after that.
society would have been a utopia if people learned how to get over Ezio, honestly. Like people like Assassin's Creed fans still need to get over Ezio. I'm sorry.
No,
Like
yeah, I just
I like him fine, but people literally like oh my god, we literally cannot move past him and it actually annoys me so
they love the
much.
circus chode.
It's like, dude, we get it, like you like Italians.
Basically, yeah, but
It's like
no, but
you like Italians.
like speaking of just like because that's what the games had a lot of. They had a lot of just this, like you said, the same missions over and over again. And that's kind of what your point you're getting trying to get
I
to,
find
aren't
it
you?
especially frustrating in MMOs. It's like, okay, go collect 10 flowers, and then like there's 10 more quests with literally the same thing,
Oh, yeah.
and all you're getting is like some XP. Like the if you're gonna have me do something again, at least give me a reward big enough. And if the reward has to be big for me to even do it and enjoy it, it means that the gameplay itself wasn't fun, and that's like a fundamental flaw, I feel.
One that kind of relate to this, but one thing I've actually never really liked that much is like level cap. It's like a level cap, like for like oh yeah, it's like you like say I think it started from like Assassin's Creed Odyssey where it was like oh yeah now like you have to be a certain level to do this storylines.
Oh, I hate
It's like
Mm.
I
that.
really don't like that. It's such an obviously like artificial way to like pad out runtime and to
Pretty
force you
much.
grinding. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
It has no purpose. It has no like that kind of game design has absolutely like no business being like part of like the modern game design. And like it's also I think just like one last thing is like I also don't like randomness that as I've said that okay it may be a contradiction because I've actually talked about how much I like dynamic like when games are dynamic, but I
Yeah.
also don't like pure randomness, which is why
Hmm.
I can never get behind battle royale games. Like Apex looks fun. Apex looks fun. Apex is fun. I've tried it a couple of times. Yeah, it was fine. And Fortnite was kind of fun for like the first little bit. But here's the problem I have with it. Like you can have like the best aim. Hypothetically speaking, you can have like godlike aim that like will have people wondering if you're cheating or not
Yeah.
because you're just that good. But you can get absolutely shafted by falling into the wrong area and getting into and opening a crate that has absolutely nothing to offer you, and then someone just fucking domes you from behind.
I
Like
I
I
I
don't like that. I genuinely don't like that.
right.
Yeah, I get it.
That's
Like randomness is good when it's coherent and it makes sense with the game. Like it's randomly designed to kind of get you like a specific type of result. Like randomness that is like random should only be like a positive thing. Like you either get a little bit of a good thing or a lot of a good thing. I feel like when the randomness punishes you and it's something that the player can't control, it's
Yeah,
just pure frustration. It's like
Yeah.
punishing mechanics. Like if you're gonna have a mechanic that punishes the player, it should never be random ever. That's
I would
just been
rather
like
have
a failing
Like
policy.
I would rather
one
take
thing,
like a giant hitbox like being bugged, like and you getting one shot over literal RNG.
Mhm.
like one thing I like that the Fire Emblem series did, like the newer game Fire Emblem Three Houses, is like crits have always been a thing in Fire Emblem. Like you can just get screwed. You got crit 1% crit. Oh, too bad. Your character died. Um, but what I like about what Three Houses did is they added a mechanic where, let's say you get screwed by RNG, you got 1% crit, your character died. You can go back in time and revise your strategy so it counteracts that RNG. I mean, you don't have to use that mechanic, but I feel it's a nice thing to alleviate the RNG.
It's like a pseudo controllable RNG.
Yeah.
That's that's fair.
Yeah,
Honestly, I only like RNG if it's in a game where it's not meant to be taken seriously. If you know what I mean? Like games where it's just a one and go. But
Would you
I don't
say
know.
like a
Like
Mario
Mario,
Party?
yeah, like Mario
Mario Party?
Party.
Like a
I
party
think
game.
those are definitely the ones where RNG is just like it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world, but you know, even that game has RNG where it's pretty dumb. So it's definitely a subtle line you can cross for
Definitely,
development.
because I feel like it would get boring if someone was like a
and like
super
it's
Mario
definitely
Party
possible to have
sweaty.
like it's definitely
Like
possible to have RNG like actually like be a core mechanic of the game without breaking. I mean, like take a look at any card game, like say like Hearthstone or like Shadowverse.
There,
Like RNG is a literal like element in the game that it's like a core element in the game because of the fact that you're drawing from like random cards in your deck. So it's like it is technically possible to have RNG be like an actual big point in your game, but
yeah.
and I do kind of understand that with like battle royales. It's like, yeah, it's like you never know what you're gonna get. Like especially in like a fight to the death, it's like yeah, I get it, but at the same time, it's like I feel like if RNG like takes away your agency for pretty much no good reason, I don't like that.
yeah, I get it.
Like how is it fair to like the guy that like has practiced like aim training like over like 300 hours and it gets absolutely shafted by getting like I don't know like the fucking power raid, and then the other guy right beside him is like level 1 and has a sniper rifle ready to like dome this guy. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Like that's kind of why I was like really surprised when like battle royales were really taking off, and it was just like this doesn't like why
Actually, it's
this
intentional,
this feels so anti-fun.
but it appeals to people because then the noob can defeat the best player because they just got lucky, and that appeals to a lot of people. It appeals to casual people because if you're playing something like a competitive online game and you only play it casually and you have to actually get good to win, that's not really fun to the casual player. But if you're like the person that just like logs on every weekend for like an hour and just want to have fun and see if you win some, then yeah, that appeals to people. It's like a game that's designed to sell, not a game designed for actually to be a good game.
I'm not sure about that anymore because like people have made a killing off of a game like Fortnite. Like look at Ninja or like all the people with like that are assigned onto like esports organizations for literally playing like Fortnite like 24/7. Like there's like their prize pools are actually enormous. Like
That's
Like
intense.
it's actually kind of insane to think about.
That these tournaments are also like advertisement for the game. It's like you have these big tournaments and the game becomes a big deal. Look at League of Legends. I feel like that game popularity has really
That's
skyrocketed ever since they joined the esport scene.
Can we actually make this into a bit of a tangent actually? Because like of like esports, like I have a bit to say about the esports, like saying for like League and like Overwatch, because like it's something I am genuinely interested in because it's like League of Legends. I feel like League of Legends and Dota have actually been growing steadily because of the fact that their growth is completely organic.
Mm.
Like the companies did not set out to make those games into like into like an esport. It happened naturally over time with people like just doing like grassroots tournaments and just doing like tier one and then just doing tier three and tier two and then finally, oh yeah, let's do an entire league around this. And like the whole business model like really popped off over the last couple of years. And then you contrast that with like say like a game that tried to force it like Overwatch. Like Overwatch League is honestly kind of a meme at this point.
True.
Like I love as someone that loves Overwatch League, I can personally say that like it did so much to taint its like reputation more
Yeah.
than any other esport that has ever been out in the last 10 years.
Honestly,
Like
yeah. Whenever I think of esports, I do not think of Overwatch.
like even Fortnite has a more reputable like reputation than like Overwatch League. Like and that's
Uh,
really saying something.
I feel like Valorant is a game that kind of got into esport because it's so unbelievably similar to Counter-Strike. Like, don't get me wrong, it is its own game. It has so many different mechanics, but like the core of the game is still heavily similar to CS:GO. And
The thing
CS:GO
about
is literally
yeah,
the esport game, you know?
yeah, but CS:GO's like popularity in esports is like actually kind of waning because Valorant exists. Because like I don't know, like CS:GO's like esport as like they like CS:GO's esport from what I remember is like actually a really like the pay for that game is actually terrible if you're a professional there. That's why so many people are moving on towards like Valorant. And also like Valorant like is such a strange anomaly in like the esports scene because like it's barely been like a year or so since like their beta closed, since their like beta opened, and like they have like a pretty big prize pool. They have actually good support for like every like team and player, like and the viewership is like increasing really steadily. Like there's a lot to unpack about Valorant because it's like Valorant's also skill based, like aim wise, but it's also just as much about like knowing how to like use your like abilities and such. So it's like that perfect segue for like CS:GO and Overwatch players, like
Mhm.
specifically the people that like to play DPS. That's kind of why a lot of like really famous Widowmaker players ended up like moving on to Valorant and having an actual career.
Wow, pretty wicked.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to think about.
Uh,
For sure. It's-
so this kind of wants, so let's go on to the final topic before a quick Q&A. Since we've
Yeah.
talked so much about like a lot of games, this kind of brings me to this topic. In your eyes, what game is a prime example of just excellent game design? You only have to pick one game and just like say why it kind of set your precedent on your like the perspective on like what makes a good game.
I'll start with my favorite game of all time. So my favorite game of all time is F-Zero GX on the GameCube. It's a racer. What I find just so fantastic about it is it's one of those games I was talking earlier on on the podcast that it's really hard, difficult, but if you put in the time and learn how the game works, you can just destroy it. Like you can just conquer. It's a game that feels nice to be good at. Like you conquered the game. And it's just all these vehicles, different play styles you can have. Each vehicle controls differently, so there's a bunch of replayability. The music's great. The gameplay just feels phenomenal. The devs really put a lot of heart into the game. There's 41 different characters you can race as, which is crazy. They each all have their backstory. Videos you get for each character. If you beat it with them on the hardest difficulty, it's just such a lot of rewards for being good at the game. It's just such a fantastic game. I feel that's very more people should play F-Zero GX. If anybody's listening to this, play F-Zero GX. It's a fantastic game.
Mm-hmm.
I think like one game with like really excellent game design is actually Doom. The more recent entries into Doom, with like Doom and Doom Eternal. I think like both of them are like games with like excellent game design, because it's just like the core gameplay loop is like so perfect, is so perfectly in tune with what they want and what players like have come to expect. And also like there's like, I feel like there's one word that you can satisfy Doom. It's satisfaction. Like the animations like for like the glory kills are super satisfying. The combat is super satisfying. Like doing anything in that game legit feels satisfying. Like from it's literally like a power fantasy, but like I feel like that's just like, but like it does it in such a fun way that like, and there's so much replayability in it too. And like the music is also like a huge part. The music, sound design, everything like plays such a huge part into it. Like
Mm-hmm.
fuck, there's so many people that still play Doom like to this day because it's just so much fun because it's just that well designed.
Right. As for me, I think, and I know I said I don't like when it's empty, but I like Breath of the Wild, the Zelda, because it might not be the most filled up world, but the rest of it is just, I love playing that game. I love how you can just build yourself up by literally using nothing but sticks, and just the all the ways you can just traverse the world and pretty much and go wherever you want and not even have to do the story, and you can finish the game. That's like a really interesting thing for me, like being able to just finish a game without having to be invested in the story. But there's a story there if you want to get to it. But also, like, just I like the fighting mechanic as well. Just getting used to that and all that, the slow motions, all of that. That was all fun for me, and I loved it. And just getting to know the characters in that game was really fun for me too. I love Zelda, so that one is up there for me, for sure.
Personally, I feel like Monster Hunter, not just World, but like the series itself, has always like been my favorite game ever. And I think it's because the game doesn't have any like objective flaws to me. It doesn't feel too grindy. It doesn't feel like it's too painful or frustrating. I'm always like, if I'm playing it, it's to have a good time. The combat is good, grinding and fighting monster, figuring out mechanics, figuring out the weapons, the crafting system, the way it rewards you with equipment and progression, the unique boss fights you can have. I think it's like it's a game that's supposed to be all about like diverse boss fight like mechanics. Like it's a game that focuses purely on a boss fight PvE aspect, and it does it like perfectly. And obviously with each newer game, like they improve upon it, and I think with their recent installment, they kind of perfected their own format. Like nobody plays that game and says like, ugh, this monster is so frustrating, or playing this weapon is not fun. It's always like, God, I love playing the great sword because it's so great or whatever. And it is. It's great to play these games. It's always fun to have just like a good time with it. I
Hmm.
feel like it's a game that achieved exactly what it wanted to do, which is why it's excellent. Not because every game should be like it, but every game should like learn from it and learn that it's important to just be able to convey what you're trying to convey.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And this kind of brings us over to like the last thing, which is the Q&A from chat. If anybody has questions, I'll give it 5 to 10 minutes. If nobody has questions, that'll be kind of it. That's it for the podcast. Any
Mm-hmm.
last words from anyone here? If anyone wants to say anything before we end the podcast.
Hmm.
I know there's one game when we were talking about backtracking. Another game that came to my mind was the original Luigi's Mansion. I feel like that's another good example of a game where it feels nice to backtrack because it's like you're in this mansion and there's rooms you can't access to earlier on in the game, and it's like, oh, I wonder what's in there. And there would be like boss fights like in the very first like area that you wouldn't know of, or there would even be secret areas that reward the player for backtracking and finding, okay, this place that I couldn't access before has
Mhm.
access to a secret boss or something. And I just feel like Luigi's Mansion 1 is just an excellent game overall.
Yeah, and the soundtrack is great, even though there is just only like 3 songs. I mean, if a game's main theme song is good enough for you to keep listening to it and not get annoyed by it throughout the entirety of its gameplay, that's a good song.
Especially when I
Undertale, baby.
whistle it. Oh, yeah.
Undertale.
That
Oh,
entire game has like infinitely good music. It's crazy.
honestly, that soundtrack actually slaps.
Yeah.
So,
Music, I feel, is like music is a very important part of
it's
the game, I feel
a
too.
very
Like,
Actually, speaking of Undertale, I remember you said that it was too easy to find secrets, but wasn't that the game that people had to go into the code and find that one guy that created sands and papyrus and everything? Like,
allegedly.
But the thing about that is though, I meant for like the most part though, for the most part it's harder to keep secrets as a dev, but like with Undertale though, with Undertale, I think Undertale came out at the right time because
Yeah,
like this is still around the time where finding Easter eggs didn't take like one day, like all the time, like you do with all these like new releases. And
and
it's
not
like,
just that. Like you really had to go into the coding to get everything out of it.
yeah, and it's just like Undertale is like a really dense. It's like surprisingly densely like it's surprisingly dense in that sense. So it's like there's always something like new to find. I mean, like look,
Mhm.
and like even if you think you found everything, there's still stuff that like you can still hide. It's just very hard. It's just very hard to find in the first place. I mean, like you look at like how Nier Automata had like a secret that went undiscovered for like a few years until literally this year. Like
Mhm.
and it was like some sort of weird input that you had to perform in front of this like one like in front of this barrel or something, and
Mhm.
if you did this movement correctly exactly the way they wanted you to, you could literally just skip the game entirely. That
Wow, I love that.
was the final secret that was actually confirmed by Yoko Taro himself. So
That's amazing. Yeah.
well, I just wanted to say thank you, Ozzy, for showing up. It was great
hey,
having you as a guest. This
let's
is really
go.
fun.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
loved seeing your more. Ironically, I love how salty you are about Overwatch, even though it's one of your favorite games.
I've somehow I've made an entire personality out of shitting on Overwatch while also simping hard for Genji.
You are literally the like the lewd Genji cosplayer, like the
I,
maid Genji cosplayer. Isn't that what you're popular for?
I hate to say it, but like it's actually kind of become my legacy, and I'll never live it down, no matter like where I go. Like I remember like going into like Genshin Impact's like Discord server for the first time, and like uploading like one of my cost tests, and then like the first thing I get like is like a DM in my Discord, and it's just like, wait, I think I've seen you before. Aren't you that one Genji cosplayer? I'm just like, God damn it, let me live. Let me out. Let me out.
Also, thank you for just showing up. I didn't know if you were actually gonna make it after last night.
Oh yeah. For
Oh,
context,
yeah.
for context, I was streaming. I was doing a charity stream last night for like 7 hours, and I was reading through the entirety of the Shrek script, but I
Oh
couldn't even finish it because I literally lost my voice part way, like towards the end, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
God,
But
I can only
it
imagine.
was a time,
I only got a
Yeah,
glimpse of it. Are you crazy?
like fucking
dude.
8 resets and like a bunch of peppers in your throat. I'm surprised you even kept going.
Dude, people are relentless. Like I said,
Uh,
my chat likes to treat me like a Sims NPC. At
oh
some
my
point,
god.
I'm gonna have a reward where I'm just gonna have a reward that like if they just show up with that reward, they're literally just gonna show up to my house and remove every single toilet in my house.
Oh my god.
Like that's literally gonna be my life for like the next little bit.
Jesus.
Actual pain,
R.I.P.
ripperonis and pepperonis.
Rip in peace.
Hey, let's get it.
Ah, but alas, everything must come to an end, and
Hey,
so does this stream.
Inevitable.
And
hell yeah.
thus, I'm just gonna say goodbye to the stream for now. But for now, I'm gonna say goodbye to you guys because, and thank you everyone for showing up. It was really fun. All the topics, all the things, all the perspectives. I definitely find the film career correlation with game design to be an
Mm.
interesting way of approaching game design. And it was very interesting just to see that part of you.
Hey,
Yeah, you have a
Yo,
good night.
totally.
Remember,
hey,
drink some milk or eat some bread because those spices are still in your tummy.
Oish.
I will suffer as long as I have to.
Well then, survive.
Let's
Dude.
Later.
go.
Ciao.
Okay, now how do I make this thing work? Webcam, show up. Something. Ugh, anyway, Chad, I have to say goodbye for now. I don't know why my camera isn't working. I'll fix that some other time, but remember to drink water, and who knows, maybe good things will happen. Good night!